It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Markets rally slightly, clawing back some losses, but the Trump administration stands firm on tariffs.
America is going to be very rich again very soon. You're going to see that happening. You see it all along, and it's so that whole situation that it was somewhat explosive. But if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be talking the way we're talking right now. It's been amazing what's happened.
As the US and China refuse to back down over tit-for-tat tariffs, we examine who's likely to be most impacted. Also tonight, the misery of living side by side with piles of rubbish as talks to end the Birmingham bin strikes end without agreement. A surprise appearance from Prince Harry as he heads to court to challenge the level of security he gets in the UK. Meanwhile, the King and Queen taking some of Rome's famous landmarks on their Italian state visit. Calls for the UK to bring in special rules for young drivers. We report from Canada, where tougher laws have seen fatalities fall. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. The market seemed to rally slightly today, but it was short-lived, with the US markets closing down after another volatile day's trading. In 7 hours' time, that's on the stroke of midnight in Washington, Donald Trump's sweeping new tariffs will kick in. America will impose an additional 50% tariff on China after it refused to meet the president's deadline to withdraw its own retaliatory levy on the US. More on that in a moment. The White House says nearly 70 countries have approached the US for tariff talks since Trump's so-called Liberation Day last Wednesday. Our first report tonight is from US correspondent James Matthews at the New York Stock Exchange.
On Wall Street, they'd seen red for 3 days straight. No more. In the New York Stock Exchange, the opening bell saw a bounce.
TT, I'm going 325.
Let me know when you're good. Hey, how's Poland?
The markets opened with a surge and a sight for sore eyes. Green is good in this place. They were calling it an up day in the morning, though by close of play, markets had turned down.
If you were giving me a tariff plan that had a purpose and an end game that was going to make things better, so be it. You're the guy. You're the new sheriff in town. But we're not seeing any of this.
This has just got to do with the tariff.
I'm concerned that this is a major undertaking, okay? But I am confident that the president has the right vision. Not only has the right vision, but this time around he has the right people in his administration.
Big money changes hands on Wall Street. The traffic here is measured in trillions.
Got your cameras?
They've known hard times before. How hard it gets this time will come down to tariffs, their success or failure. The US government has confirmed a 104% tariff on goods from China to kick in from midnight, dismissing Beijing's claim of economic bullying. In a White House news conference, the president alluded to the problems of today and to the promises of tomorrow.
America is going to be very rich again very soon. You're going to see that happening. You see it all along, and it's so that whole situation that it was somewhat explosive. But if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be talking the way we're talking right now. It's been amazing what's happened. Sometimes you have to mix it up a little bit.
This tariff story is financial and political on a number of levels. There is, of course, the international dimension, domestic too. Consider the politics of the Trump administration, now with fracture lines running towards the top. Step forward, Elon Musk.
Elon's a car manufacturer, but he's not a car manufacturer, he's a car assembler.
This was Peter Navarro. It was the verdict of one Trump advisor on another. Musk's response in social media posts was to call Navarro truly a moron and dumber than a sack of bricks. He later added, I'd like to apologise to BRICS for calling him dumber than a sack of bricks. That was so unfair to BRICS.
Look, these are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys, and we will let their public sparring continue.
On top of market turmoil, it's a rift between two boys that doesn't strengthen the man in the middle. James Matthews, Sky News, at the New York Stock Exchange.
Well, tensions are ratcheting up between the world's two biggest economies. US tariffs on China will go up tonight to more than 100% of the cost of the goods, with the White House saying the Chinese want to make a deal, they just don't know how to do it. So what could be the impact of a trade war between these superpowers? Here's our business and economics correspondent, Gurpreet Narwan.
A tit-for-tat trade war. Markets are dreading it, and most world leaders are trying to avoid it, but not China. It's hit back with a 34% tariff of its own. It's taking the fight to Trump, and this is what escalation looks like. When Trump first came to power, US tariffs on Chinese goods weren't much higher than they were on the rest of the world. But Trump, across his two presidencies, has amped up the pressure. Within months of coming into power the second time round, he slapped a 10% tariff on China, then another 10% in March. And that was before Liberation Day, where he hit the country with another 34%. China hit back with 34% of its own. So Trump, well, he threatened, as you can see here, 50%. That would take the effective tariff to 124%. At that level, you're effectively shutting down trade. And this is why he's doing it, his least favourite chart. It shows the US is importing far more from China than China takes back. The deficit's been building steadily. It accelerated in the 2000s after China joined the World Trade Organization and Beijing reformed the economy, boosting exports of electronics, toys, machinery, building what we now call the world's factory. Well, Trump, he's been trying to shut it down. And his mechanism for doing that is tariffs. China is defiant, though. It says it can withstand a Trump assault. And as you can see here, it has become less dependent on the US market for its exports. This is the percentage of Chinese goods going directly to the US. But it doesn't tell us how much trade China has been diverting through other Asian countries like Vietnam, for example, to dodge US tariffs. Well, Trump has wised up to that. He's imposed crippling tariffs on countries across Asia, shutting down those routes. And for all its fighting talk, China does want to negotiate because it will feel economic pain from this, as will US exporters who sent $143 billion worth of goods to China. Prices will go up for consumers, growth will slow. And among it all, it's hard to see who the winners will be.
Let's speak to our US correspondent, James Matthews, who's at the New York Stock Exchange. And James, how did the markets respond today?
Not well at all, Gillian. You know, things were looking up at the start of the day. I was in reception. The mood was good. There was a group of students and the host welcomed him with welcome to the chaos. Big laugh all round. And sure enough, you came in here on a day when there was an expectation that the markets would bounce back to a degree. They duly did because stocks were cheap. There were trade negotiations ongoing, countries queuing up to negotiate with the Trump administration. But it all turned on that announcement, that confirmation today around midday that there would indeed be 104% tariffs imposed on goods coming in from China. So the monitors around this place, they show green when the stocks are on the way up. They show red when they're on the way down. They flipped instantaneously almost from green to red, and the market's finished cemented in the basement once more. Just to give you a flavour, the Dow was down 240 points. The broader S&P 500, that fell 1.3%. NASDAQ Composite, that was down 1.8%. So, you know, a dark day compounded by this soap opera playing out in Washington, D.C. between Peter Navarro and Elon Musk. That looks like it can only get worse. What it doesn't feed is any kind of sense of political unity and any sense of common purpose with regard to tariffs and where they are going. This place wants certainty. It's not getting it from the White House thus far. And there are concerns that, yeah, we've seen another dark day, that it won't be the last.
Will that certainty ever return? James, for the moment, thank you. Well, another round of talks between union leaders and Birmingham City councillors have ended without an agreement over how to solve the city's bin crisis. Councillors faced questions earlier today as hundreds of striking workers gathered in the centre of the city, with their walkout entering a fifth week. Our national correspondent Tom Parmenter reports.
This is what it's come to. A daily dose of disinfectant. Because the biggest rubbish pile on James's Street is right on his doorstep.
Feels like you're doing something.
It's doing something, yeah.
Yeah. He's using litres of this stuff to keep the stench at bay.
You get depressed sometimes looking at it like.
The thing that hurts him most is that they're holding his grandmother's funeral next week. The hearse won't be able to get to their house.
She was a lovely woman. She liked it here, and I'd like, to get her down here. That's it. Yeah. Mean an awful lot to me. Yeah. So I'd like to bring her back here and start the funeral from here.
But it's just not possible.
It's not going to be possible.
His neighbour Javid is registered blind and has already hurt himself simply leaving the house.
I tripped over here a couple of times and fell.
Over the rubbish?
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I feel terrible, to be honest. Because, I'm from Asian country, yeah. In the third world country, we don't have this. What we got here, yeah. This is beyond third world country.
Some rubbish is being picked up by agency workers, but the union and the city council still haven't reached a full settlement.
I understand how difficult this is for the people of the city. This is why we're very keen to get a resolution to the dispute, and also why we're taking the contingency measures that we are as well.
Inside the council's meeting, a man dressed as a rat turned up to make his point.
What date does the council think it will have reduced the backlog, reduced the rat population, and returned our streets to an acceptable state?
Are we going to win? Are we going to win?
While outside, the striking workers and their union say they cannot back down.
This isn't about a pay rise. This is about a pay cut of a quarter of their pay. That blame sits at the door of the council. But look, I think there's a resolution to be had. We've put that resolution forward. I really would like the council to pick that up.
Until they reach an agreement, people are stuck living with this embarrassing mess. And now the Health Secretary has said he's concerned as to the effect it's having on the people living here amongst this rubbish.
It's not the first bin strike in this city, but it is fast becoming one of the worst, with residents desperate for an end to this squalor. Tom Parmenter, Sky News, Birmingham.
The Israeli government is insisting it's carrying out a thorough investigation into how Israeli troops came to open fire on a group of vehicles in Gaza, including ambulances, killing 15 emergency workers. The Palestine Red Crescent Society has accused Israel of intentionally shooting the medics dead. Well, this video shows the moments before the shooting involving a convoy of ambulances and a fire truck near Rafah last month. The Israeli military says investigations so far have shown soldiers fired due to feeling a sense of threat, and that 6 of those killed were Hamas terrorists. The IDF initially said the vehicles approached suspiciously without lights on, but changed its account when video showed emergency lights flashing. My colleague Mark Austin asked the Israeli government spokesperson, David Mentzer, what direct proof there was that 6 Hamas fighters were in the ambulances.
So our investigation is taking place right now. It's going to be very thorough. It will be coming out very, very shortly. We have nothing to hide whatsoever, and the thorough investigation, the results of which should come out very, very shortly. But whatever happens, let's remember...
Can I just ask you another particular question? Do you have evidence that they identified them as Hamas before they opened fire or after they opened fire?
I will answer that question, but I must tell you, firstly, that emergency vehicles should be used to save lives, Hamas has turned them into getaway cars for killers. While our
But that doesn't mean you can shoot at every ambulance. I'm just trying to get to the heart of this
yes, of course.
question. You said you'd answer it. Were they
I'm happy to
identified as Hamas, these 6 Hamas you've identified? Were they identified before these troops opened fire or after?
So that's why Hamas themselves use ambulances to hide their identity.
Right.
While
So
our
it was
soldiers,
after. So it was after.
No, while our soldiers stake out Hamas terror squads, Hamas hides behind civilians and then cries foul when terrorists are targeted. Let me be clear. This incident happened.
Let's be clear on this one.
Zone
Let's just be clear on this question. Were they identified before? Were they identified before or after?
Among those killed were 6 Hamas terrorists. That is not speculation. It is confirmation. The IDF is investigating the incident in Rafah thoroughly, transparently, and in real time. Hamas, on the other hand, investigates nothing, admits nothing, and abuses everything.
But
no army in the world does more to avoid civilian casualties than the IDF. And
Some other questions. Why did they
more than Hamas?
Right. Why did they hide the? I mean, there are so many questions here. Why did they hide the bodies? Why did they try to hide the ambulances? These are all questions, by the way, that many international organisations, it's not Hamas I'm echoing here, it's the UN Secretary General, it's the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, the head of the UN Humanitarian Affairs Office, Tom Fletcher, it's the Red Cross, numerous governments, all saying it's unacceptable, all calling for an independent inquiry. So why not?
Mark, Israel doesn't fear the truth. That's why we are investigating this incident extremely thoroughly. Can Hamas say the same? Hamas violates every principle of international law. They hide in hospitals, in mosques, in schools, and then they blame us when war crimes blow up in their own faces.
David Menzer there. Prince Harry turned up at the appeal court today on the first day of his case over security arrangements in the UK. He wants government-funded police bodyguards, which he lost when he stepped down as a working royal. Here's our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock.
He's no stranger to the British courts, but this a rare personal appearance as Prince Harry shows up for the latest legal showdown over his security.
Morning, Harry. Are you going to visit your dad, Harry?
Plenty of questions, but he's here for answers about the way police protection was withdrawn when he left his royal role. Inside court, the Duke's team argued proper process wasn't followed.
He has been singled out for different, unjustified and inferior treatment.
The Home Office strongly disagrees, but Harry's team say since he and Meghan stepped down, the decision to grant a bespoke security arrangement wasn't fair.
The appellant's case is that he should be considered under the terms of reference and subject to the same process as any other individual being considered for protective security.
Experts say sorting security for high-profile people is always complex.
Each risk assessment analysis has to be current. You have to look at the current threat, the current risk to that individual, the timeliness of it, the potential of any risks or threats, and balance it accordingly with the protections put in place.
It comes as Prince Harry's Centre Bali charity is caught up in a catastrophic boardroom breakdown. Back in California, Meghan's launching her latest venture, a podcast, which reveals her medical scare after giving birth.
And we both had preeclampsia, postpartum
God, can you
preeclampsia.
believe we both had that? It's so rare.
It's so rare.
And so scary.
And so scary. And you go, and you're still trying to juggle all of these things, and the world doesn't know what's happening.
The Duke's case clashed with Meghan's podcast, but he didn't want to miss this moment. The fact Prince Harry was here in person shows how much this means to him. He wants to come home more often and bring his family with him. As he sat in court, he listened intently, making occasional notes. Harry's two-day hearing will be decided by 3 appeal court judges. He won't be here for their ruling, due to be published at a later date. Laura Bundock, Sky News, Central London.
Well, meanwhile, the King and Queen have begun their 4-day state visit to Italy. Charles and Camilla spent the day touring the Colosseum, as well as being given an official welcome at the presidential palace in Rome. From there, our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills reports.
If you want to make sure your visit has impact, this will probably do it. The closeness of the UK and Italy spectacularly on display over Rome. As the King and Queen met President Mattarella and his daughter Laura to formally begin their royal tour. But on their coattails, a significant political delegation. Foreign Secretary David Lammy tucked away in the left-hand corner there, laughing with the UK's ambassador. This is what resetting our relationships with our European partners looks like. Even if the King wasn't entirely happy with how his photo op was going. We don't get to see the important diplomatic talks. We do see the symbolism. A nod to our shared history at the tomb of the unknown soldier, and in the current climate, an acknowledgement of our important defence ties. There's been nothing understated on this tour so far to try and guarantee it gets coverage. The crowds getting a show they hadn't expected at the Colosseum. As the King and Queen then posed for a pre-20th wedding anniversary photo opportunity. Even though back home, there were unexpected pictures appearing of another member of the family. Neither of them are strangers to family and private matters getting in the way of their public duties. No doubt Harry being in London is a distraction, but it certainly will not stand in the way of them doing everything they possibly can to still keep their hosts happy. With everything else going on in the world at the moment, it's easy to wonder why this really matters. Yet to quote the UK's ambassador, he is convinced those handshakes will deliver an intangible yet priceless legacy. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News in Rome.
A 15-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl have been convicted of killing an elderly dog walker in a park near Leicester last year. 80-year-old Bim Coley was walking his dog just yards from his home in Braunston Town when the attack took place last September. A post-mortem examination showed he died from a neck injury and also had several fractured ribs. Neither the boy nor the girl can be named due to their ages.
Our home feels so empty without him and will never be the same. Every time my mum opens the front door, she thinks about what happened to her husband. Listening to the enormity of what happened, what Dad was subjected to, will never leave us. We feel angry and disgust towards the teenagers who took Dad away from us.
At least 44 people have been killed and more than 160 injured after a roof fell at a nightclub in the capital of the Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo. Emergency crews are still searching for survivors in the rubble at the Jet Set Club, with some people still trapped and believed to be alive. President Zelensky says the Ukrainian military have captured 2 Chinese citizens who were fighting for Russia in the eastern Donetsk region. He said his forces had fought 6 Chinese soldiers and 2 of them had been taken prisoner. China has been accused of helping Russia in its war in Ukraine, though Beijing has denied allegations it has supplied weapons to the Kremlin. The Green Party has launched its local election campaign with the party's co-leader, Carla Denyer, accusing Labour of being a crushing disappointment in government. She's pitched the Greens as a progressive alternative, arguing voters across the country are looking for something different. There are calls for the government to introduce graduated driving licences. They're used across the world and are designed to grant new drivers road privileges in a staggered format. Our correspondent Dan Whitehead reports from Canada, where they're already in place and where there's been an 83% drop in teenage driver deaths.
I have never driven a car and I don't know how to even start a car.
This is Bapreet's first time behind the wheel.
Check the mirror, make sure we know what's happening behind us.
It'll be at least 20 months before she gets a full driving licence. New drivers here in Toronto learn in stages, and the tougher rules have cut deaths among 16 to 19-year-olds by 83%.
In the UK, you can do a course in 1 week and then take your test.
Wow.
What do you think about that?
Not everything is about freedom. You have to consider others as well. It's not just you driving, right? So there's other people on the road who you have to make feel safe.
It takes nearly 2 years to get a driving licence here in this part of Canada, and in that time, learner drivers can't go on the roads between midnight and 5 a.m. They can't drive with a car full of their mates. All things which have seen the number of injuries and deaths on the road fall.
Maria helped to introduce graduated driving licences to Ontario in the early 90s.
It could be a passenger restriction, it could be a time of day restriction, it could be a blood alcohol or a drug concentration restriction. But, basically the idea is not to take someone who is newly licensed and say, here, go forth into this crazy, mad driving world and just let them, do or die, right? Because more often it's the die.
The system they have here is exactly what campaigners back in the UK want the government to consider. Elliot was killed when a car he was in with friends crashed into a tree at 100 miles per hour near Oxford. His sister Mia is angry the government is refusing to introduce tougher rules.
I think they're making a very irresponsible decision.
Do you think if graduated driving licences had been in place, your brother might still be here?
Absolutely, he would, yes. It makes me feel really angry and really quite disappointed and let down by our government, because he would still be here and so would hundreds of other people's sons and daughters, and it's completely changed my whole life, and I see how hurt my parents are by it, and I just need it to stop.
The government says it's not considering GDLs. It believes they unfairly penalise young drivers and is looking at other options to tackle the issue.
You have the full light package, you have the full siren package.
Back in Toronto, Superintendent Matt Moyer heads up Canada's largest road safety unit. He admits there are challenges in enforcing GDLs, but believes the system does save lives.
Come out to some of our fatals and find out why, there's 3,000 pounds of steel wrapped around this person, and yet there was never any standard applied to them. And I understand that there's some people who might believe that it's an infringement upon their rights to actually introduce laws. These aren't laws, they're standards. And the more people that will accept that and abide by that, you've just made a major contribution to public safety in Britain.
Road safety groups, MPs, bereaved families, they all want the UK government to copy what's done here. Ultimately, they believe it'll reduce deaths on Britain's roads. Dan Whitehead, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by Conservative Home's Deputy Editor, Henry Hill, and the journalist and broadcaster, Jenny Kleeman. Amongst the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Financial Times about tonight's top story here on Sky News. Its headline, Trump poised to ignite global trade war with the steepest tariffs in a century. Do stay with us, we'll be right back.